Good morning. It is Wednesday, February the 3rd, 2016. I'm in my shop. We're not going to talk about crystals today. We're going to talk about Bridget. We're going to talk about Imbolc. Let me back up a little bit. So we've had like I can't say we've had a ton of snow. We've had a ton of hype that has led to a small amount of snow, but it's kind of disrupted everybody's worlds for the last couple of days up here. But everybody's kind of getting back to normal now. So we've had a lot of snow. We've had a lot of running around and trying to make sure that everybody's got supplies in their houses and salt and shovels and all that stuff. But yesterday was, it's a pagan or Wiccan holiday known as Bridget, or known as Imbolc. And that would be spelled I-M-B-O-L-C. And Bridget or Imbolc is the first holiday in the calendrical year. It's not the New Year for most pagans. Most pagans celebrate New Year at Samhain, which would be Halloween. But it's the first holiday that falls on the calendar. It also happens to be the same day as Groundhog Day, the day of worldwide prognostication, that's the word, of a rodent, letting you know if it's going to be winter or spring. And I don't know how many of you guys caught the news last year, but our resident rodent that hangs out in Sun Prairie, Jimmy the groundhog, Jimmy had to be replaced this year from what I understand, because Jimmy the groundhog from last year, understandably, didn't appreciate being pulled out of hibernation and displayed at the crack of dawn by a whole bunch of loud, manhandling people, and he bit the mayor of Sun Prairie last year, which there were many of us who actually went, "Hooray, Jimmy! Go for it!" He did not get put down. It's okay. He was taken care of, but he did get retired as the forecaster of spring or winter. So there was a new Jimmy this year. I didn't watch to see if Jimmy Jr. bit the mayor or not. But we have also, same as Punxsutawney Phil, we also have had the declaration of spring is soon to come. So then we were dropped on by all this snow. So anyway, but yesterday was also the holiday of Imbolc. And Imbolc is kind of the holiday of lights. It's also known as Candlemas. This is a holiday that celebrates the returning of the sun. When we hit the winter solstice, we hit that changing of more light from more dark. It was becoming longer daytimes and shorter night times. But this is when we really start to see the difference. And in some areas of the world, it's actually getting warm enough to where this does look like the beginning of spring. We kind of have three spring holidays. We have Imbolc, we have Ostara, and we have Beltane. With Beltane being kind of the culmination of all of this growth really coming to fruition and really starting to show. But during the time of Bridget, we recognize the goddess becoming a little more pregnant with her new creations. We welcome the planting of seeds. We welcome the stirrings of new growth. We welcome the fertility of the masculine aspect of God as well. And there are a lot of different things we can do to celebrate this time of the year. I wanted to show you guys a little book that I like to use. This book is called Circle Round. Okay. And this book is by Starhawk, Diane Baker, and Ann Hill. And I use this book for a lot of things. I used this book when I used to have a temple for adults and families and children. I use this book for my own personal practice. It's actually geared toward families, and it's written in a way that you can explain things to children so that they understand the why and the wherefore. But it's also got some really great stories and mythologies and activities that adults can use too. And what I like about it is, like in this book, for example, this is the section on Bridget. So it talks about the mythology of Bridget. It talks about the status of the goddess at this time. It talks about the status of the god. There's little songs in here. It talks about what the land is doing, and it talks about how to set up an altar. There's some more songs, and then usually it has a few stories in here. So there's a couple of stories, and sometimes the stories are mythological stories that we would know, or fairy tales, and sometimes there's stories that they're fiction, but they're set in in contemporary times, and they're set with a moral that we can understand. And you can see here's another song, and these songs are all seasonal songs. There's another story. Okay, so then it gets into activities. So here's a ritual that you can perform, and this ritual is for health and creativity. And then there are different other activities. So here's a poetry dinner, it suggests. Here it talks about different ways to create a Bridget's fire. One is an Epsom salt and alcohol fire, and the other one is about teaching your children how to build a proper fire outside. Because with Bridget, we're dealing with water and fire. These are the two elements of this season. Talks about Bridget doll. It's kind of like corn dollies, only you do it with grains, other grains. Here's candle hats, because during the time of Bridget, usually there's a wreath with candles on it. There's a candle holder recipe, Bridget candles, beehive candles, braided Bridget bread. So then there's recipes in here too for different foods. Bridget soup. Here's a meditation, essentially a bananas foster, but they call it bananas a la Bridget, and popcorn, and then we go into the next season. So what Dan and I did for Bridget this year is we kept it pretty simple. We really just focused on meals this year. And with Bridget, you want to focus on kind of the white foods or dairy foods, because this is the time when you look at the word Imbolc. Imbolc translates to use milk. So it's the time when the milk starts to come in. In older times, obviously that's not the way it works now. We're less reliant on the actual cycles of nature, and we create our own cycles of nature now, unfortunately through things like growth hormones and farming and things like that. But what Dan and I did is we started the day with polenta, white polenta, with butter and milk, and then some white sugar, because Dan likes white sugar. And then for lunch we had a potato chowder, and we had the potato chowder with grilled cheese sandwiches, and I have a little tomato core, so I cut out a little full moon and two little crescents, so I made the little full moon crescent moon goddess symbol on top of the grilled cheese sandwich with some extra cheese. And then for dinner we had pork chops, and stuffing, and we had potatoes, white potatoes, to go with that, and mixed vegetables, little tiny little mixed vegetables, and white wine. So that was how we celebrated Bridget with our food. Dan and I aren't as good about doing our rituals as what we used to be, primarily because I seem to have lost a lot of my fire as far as doing rituals and doing daily devotionals and practices, and I'm trying really hard to bring that fire back. That's part of the reason I do these videos. It gives me something that I have to do, something that I feel obligated to do, but something that I feel obligated to do that is a good thing. Not like, oh, I'm obligated to go to work every single day. This is an obligation that I've chosen to have because I'm trying to kind of kickstart my fire again. And Bridget is a good time to do that as well. When you have projects that you want to restart, this is a good time to do that. And when you have creative ideas that you want to start putting spark to, this is a good time to do that as well. So that's kind of my little Bridget talk for the day. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped you guys out a little bit. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next week. At some point I'm supposed to be doing an interview with a friend of mine who is an artisan, and she wants to interview me based on my arts and crafts, and that will be my weekly video when that happens, but I don't know when that's going to happen yet. So, keep an eye open for that. That'll be coming. Oh, and I started a Twitter page. I started my own personal Twitter, which is all done in haiku. Everything that I post, whether it's snarky or happy or sad, it's all done in haiku. But I started one for the shop that is not in haiku. But I started one for the shop, and it's at Twitter at Crystal Soul Tina. So now you can find me on YouTube here. You can find me on Twitter. Or you can find my shop on Twitter. You can't find me. I keep my personal pages very close. You find me on Facebook through Crystal Soul Healing on Facebook. And then I also have the Crystal Soul website, which is crystalsoulhealing.com. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. Stay warm. Those of you who have gotten or are getting a butt ton of snow, be careful when you're shoveling. Don't overdo it. You know the deal. Take good care of your back. Take good care of your lungs. Wear a hat and gloves. Don't get frostbite. Don't lift too much on that shovel. Take it in pieces and drink lots of water. Yes, Mom, we know. So, take care of yourselves. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.